Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Good Doctor's continuing coverage of Hulu's limited series, Mrs. America. We're here with the finale, in fact. I am, as always, Dr. Kristen.
As always, Dr. Erin with you.
And this one's rich, so let's get into it.
Yes.
We open essentially with, we opened in 1979 on the cusp of the 1980 election. Machinations are happening to get Reagan in the White House, and we are watching the imminent demise of the political feminist movement in a way that's quite upsetting. So the two tracks, as always, Phyllis and her Eagle Forum, and then everybody else. So we open with Phyllis, and the first thing I tracked was that poor Pamela has another baby, which is exactly the thing in the last episode. We found out she didn't want.
No. Oh, as soon as I saw that baby out, and then they said, like, it's 1979, I was like, oh no, that's a new baby. Poor Pamela.
Baby. We also find out that Alice has really been pulling away from the group, and has been, what she tells us, is spending time with her grandchildren. But we also find out later in the episode that she is becoming very disenchanted with Phyllis. And so we see the seeds of that in the beginning of the episode. We then spend quite a lot of time with Bella and her surrounding tribe as they are trying to get a meeting with President Carter, which I will say, I'm not somebody who knew a whole lot about President Carter beyond a lot of the kind of religious folklore that we have about him, and that we made him sell his peanut farm and we didn't make the current president give up his hotels. But the fact that if what has happened in this episode is true, which my internet research tells me it was, his his firing of Bella Abzug is a very shady, not great thing. What got me over and over again was how many times that, like, as they were plotting how to get a better meeting with the president, because 15 minutes is a joke. They were right about that. 15 minutes is a photo op.
It's a photo op. Yep. It was just lip service.
And Gloria made the point that this is what the men do.
Yeah.
And so they played the cards that men play and got the punishments that women get.
Yeah.
And it was very, man, that's happened too many times.
Way too many times. And like Bella calls them out on it, right? She says, like, McGovern, like, badmouths the president and you look the other way. Well, McGovern's a senator.
No, McGovern's a man.
You're just a bunch of women.
Yeah, what he said, we can't have the president pushed around by a bunch of women. It makes him look weak.
It makes him look weak. Yeah. And so, like, the sharp incision, tiny little incisions of the gender politics in this was something I did not know about Carter. Yep. And seeing Bella's face when she's not even allowed to resign because they leaked her firing to the press. Like, you know, in my head, it just flashed to what happened to Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez a week and a half ago on the steps of the House. Like, you think we've come a long way. We've made some progress, but we're still on this uphill battle.
The comeuppance for that moment, which I really, really loved, was that later on, those Georgia boys of Carter's were given their comeuppance when the entire organization resigned, in a very beautiful moment, in which the women reminded Carter's Georgia boys that if they're going to be punished like men, they're still going to behave like women.
Yes.
And
when they go low,
we go high. And that was a really great moment. Following that group of people, we find out, of course, like we spend the time with them. For anyone who's not aware, 1980 election was a absolute unverified landslide, not only for President Reagan, but for the GOP. And it was a resounding, according to political analysts and a lot of press, a resounding statement by the American people that they wanted their country back from liberals, feminists, and abortionists. Which, sure, mazel. And what we see now happening in national politics has a lot of, it's very, very deep seeds in 1979, 1980, and 1981, which is what we saw. But one of the most impactful conversations for me as we watched that fallout was that Bella calls Shirley Chisholm. Shirley has retained her seat at this point. We know that Shirley will leave professional politics fairly soon after this election. But the way that Bella and Shirley talk to each other, and Bella tells Shirley, hold open the door for the next bunch. I paused a little bit and I was like, yeah, please keep holding the door.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole bunch of next bunches of us. And we're trying.
Game of Thrones reference, hold the door.
Yeah, seriously, hold the door.
Like, sorry, didn't mean to laugh at that, but hold the door. Yeah, I mean, that I teared up with that, definitely, because kind of the last 20 minutes of this episode, you're seeing these women reckon with not the death of the movement, but certainly they see the writing on the wall. This is a massive, massive loss of power and influence, and they know the type of people, because of Phyllis Schlafly and her ilk, that are behind Reagan, and the resigned defeatism is really hard to watch, and to know, like, they don't know exactly how much damage is going to be done before the next wave, but we do, and it's a lot of damage.
Yeah, and I thought, like, they seem really pessimistic, and there was no part of me that could be like, but guys, don't worry. Like, oh crap, you're right.
We got this. Bad. Oh wait, we don't got this.
We don't got this. So then the other kind of resounding thing at the end is we follow Gloria for a little bit, and Gloria informs, in a conversation with Bella, informs
with Betty.
Betty accosts her at the hair salon, which seems to be incredibly on brand for Betty Friedan. And says our movement didn't start in Washington and it won't be stopped by it. And I did fist pump at that, and I was like, you are correct.
You're right.
So then let's go back to the Phyllis of it all briefly. The big kind of push of this episode is twofold. One is the Eagle Forum is throwing a gala on the night that would have passed the ERA. It's like a death party for the ERA that is in insanely poor taste.
Yeah.
Insanely poor taste. We also get to see some of our current favorite criminals, Paul Manafort and Roger Stone.
Uh-huh.
They show up in this. There's machinations over who Phyllis is going to give her endorsement to, whether it's going to be James Marsden or President Reagan. And evidently she's really pissed that James Marsden and his wife like other people in their bed, which, sure, I mean, guess that's important.
Of course she would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when in doubt, you should always choose James Marsden, but that is a lesson Phyllis Schlafly did not learn.
Literally in almost every circumstance, choose James Marsden. So we see as well that, for anyone who didn't realize, President Trump got his Make America Great Again slogan from the 1980 Reagan campaign, which was Let's Make America Great Again. So we see that. We see Phyllis.
Waiting on that greatness any day now.
It's I mean, if we didn't get it by genocidally slaughtering all of the native inhabitants, I don't know quite how we're going to get it, but that's
enslaving generations.
And enslaving generations of people and counting women as not full citizens. If we didn't manage it then, I don't know how we're going to manage it now, but sorry, I'm a little salty, guys.
Just a little bit, kids, but it's okay. Yeah. Continue.
So the thing that with Phyllis is that she banks on always winning. And she doesn't. In this episode, we find out that she in very real terms betrayed the plan that she and Fred had to endorse James Marsden.
Or at least not decide who they were endorsing until after Iowa. And instead, the night of the gala, guarantees Reagan's advance men that he's got her endorsement. And I noticed that it was not that he had their endorsement as the Schlaflys, he had hers.
And her hubris is what ends up defeating her in the end.
Yeah, because there's a poignant scene. There's a couple scenes in this episode that telegraph what happens to Phyllis, and throughout the series, right? She is always in these positions, in these rooms, leveraging her power, but because of her vagina, her power only gets her so far. So you get the scene where she gets an advanced copy of Goldwater's biography. She's not in it. We know Dawn Rumsfeld took a lot of her ideas on national security. And she always thinks like, oh, this next time I'll get it. So she thinks this time, you know, even though she has this conversation with Alice where she says like, did you not think there would be casualties in this war? It never enters her mind, even though she's been a casualty at several points in her career, that she's going to be a casualty this time. And I don't know what we're supposed to see in the look in her face after she gets the phone call, but I didn't feel bad about it.
No, because I spent too much of the rest of the episode feeling bad about everybody else that she ignored and stepped on in her rise to the top, like her sister-in-law and Alice and her staff, her household staff.
Yeah.
That moment where she was like just blatantly abusing her daughter, like her household staff's need to get her own family so that she wouldn't miss a meeting. Like,
yeah, and never said anything to her. Oh, I'll make it up to you. Like, there's no way.
I'm so incredibly sorry. I'm completely stuck. Is there any way you can do me a solid? It's just a blithe. Like, you'll take care of it because you work for me.
You will take care of it, and I will make it up to you.
Because I am the most important person in this equation.
It was interesting to see some of like Fred's pushback at points in the conversation he has with her mother, where he's like, I've been trying to take our country back for 50 years. She's been doing it for 7. And the fact that his mother was like, she was anointed by God. I was like, oh,
that Lord. Language is used a lot.
It's even used to talk about current inhabitants of the White House.
And if anyone has questions as to why we use anointing language in American civil religion and evangelicalism, I'm happy to address those.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense to me and is not necessarily a rant I need to go on if people are not curious. So.
Yeah, I mean, for my money, watching Alice in this episode was, I mean, Sarah Paulson does a great job. And she is kind of the in-between, right? I think she's a lot of women that get sucked into personalities and movements, and she's done a lot of reflecting, and she realizes that what she felt with Phyllis was not empowerment but fear, and she's found her own voice and individuality, and realizes like the moral failings of this movement. And Rosemary like says to her honestly, like, it's been taken over now. Like, this is not just about the ERA anymore. This is about this conservative wave in politics. And it forever shifts American politics. What happened during this decade of mobilization of women. And I hadn't really ever had that solidified for me. I certainly wasn't taught it. And so I am grateful for the show creators for having this conversation and showing that nuance.
Throughout human history, one of the most divisive questions that any organization has ever had to answer is, what about the women?
Mm-hmm.
And this proves again that once we have to think about what to do about the women, divisions happen. And so it's a fascinating piece of humanity that this is a consistent theme.
But I found hope at the end. Like, even with the Chirons, the women's movement never reached that level of power again. And I said, not yet, until now. And they show some scenes of protest movements that have happened in the last several years. They play some pretty bloody, inspiring music talking about the 3 final states that ratified the ERA. And for any of you playing at home, very clearly, if the Democrats can take control of the Senate in the upcoming election in November, I think we would see the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment. So there is, I think, a lot of hope in that. For as defeated as those women were, I wanted to be like, look at us, we're still here.
We still kept it alive.
Like, I don't know who's still alive. I think Gloria Steinem's still alive.
Yes, she is. Yes.
Probably Bella and Betty are dead. Long live our ancestors. But I was like, we're still here. Maybe this wave will do it.
We'll keep pushing. And you know, the arc of history is long, but it is bent towards justice, as our Reverend King says, and President Obama told us that it's not in a straight line either. And so this is a good reminder of that. Overall, we would 100% recommend this show.
Yes, if that was unclear.
Like, wholeheartedly, I would even ask it to be taught in schools.
Yes.
And it is something, when we have interns here at Abbey Research from now on, we'll be recommending that they watch and view and understand. And so it's a really important part of American history that very, very few people are taught in schools. Most American schools, for anyone watching us around the world, we do a lot of history, but we kind of stop at World War II. And then we kind of do a whippersnapper tour through Vietnam.
Yeah, potted would be accurate.
And then sometimes we cover 9/11. Not always. We talk about World War II a lot, though. So don't worry, you know what a Nazi is.
Yeah. And the focus, as ever in history, right, is on political actors. So we learn about Reagan and Reaganomics. But a lot of these women have been written out of the history books if they were ever in them to begin with. And certainly the impact of these women and their voices and their power to shift political momentum in a way that is monumental. Like what happened with Reagan's election forever changed the American political landscape. And it would not have happened were it not for the women's movement or for Phyllis Schlafly and the Stop ERA campaign. So, and that is not something I was ever taught or learned about. I didn't know there was an Equal Rights Amendment until about 5 years ago. So for that work that it did alone, and in this auspicious year of the centenary of the fight for women's suffrage, which we will be coming up on the anniversary of in August, I have no doubt that is why this show was produced at this time.
Absolutely. And little fun fact, we'll be talking about suffrage a little bit more here on Abbey Research, but Tennessee was the state that finally ratified the 19th Amendment and that gave women the vote. And there is a lot to learn from the Tennessee suffrage fight about kind of how we do politics now. If you thought that 1979 was everything old is new again, let me tell you, 1919.
I'd like to introduce you to the suffrage movement.
I'd like to introduce you to 1899 and 1799.
Yeah, and prior to that, the abolitionist movement.
Yeah, and the Protestant Reformation. Guys, good news. Humans have always been both terrible and wonderful at the same time.
It all goes back to Anne Boleyn, kids.
Oh, God.
It all goes back to our dear Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII's decision-making disorder.
It all goes back to Henry VIII is what it goes back to.
Yes. We should not blame Anne.
We're not going to slut shame Anne Boleyn like the rest of history.
Girl did what she had to do. It was Henry's problem that created.
And that's a rant for another time. This has been a joy for us to watch and talk about with you guys. We hope you've gotten something out of it. And we are still debating as to what we're going to cover next in terms of streaming content, but you'll certainly be the first to know. So please enjoy the rest of your year of July or August, whenever you're watching this. And we will see you soon.
See you next decade or month. Bye.